Here.
Mr. Bigley's here, Mr. Ballack is absent. We have no legislation for the evening. Does anybody want to open it up with anything?
I mean, we're gonna talk about backyard gardens, I don't know.
We still can.
Okay.
Well, for
I mean front yard gardens.
front yard gardens, correct.
Sorry.
Mr. Carselli, we obviously know his stance. If you spoke with him, I have as well. You know, I think we've spoken about this enough. We kind of went over this about 10 times and not really made a decision. I don't know how much there is more to talk about. I
This is
think.
a mailbox
Right.
from Mr. Johnson. It's his
That was just
stance on.
Okay. I think once everybody is here, we should more or less take a vote whether we are for or against.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't know how many more times we really want to go over it.
I think we should give John a copy of this though too, so he can look this over, because I think this is what we all kind of agreed on how the
Yeah.
stipulations
The
should
only
be.
thing would be, like, and I'm in agreement with Dallas with some of this stuff, if, like, we have to have somebody that's gonna keep this.
Yeah.
I'm to be honest with you, when it comes to the front yard, it's kind of cut and dry at this point. I think we either approve them or we don't approve them. That's where I'm at.
So I have a question about, like, the one on Maplewood. Were they cited for that, what do I wanna say, the compost in the front yard?
There's nothing I could cite them for. The compost was not, if it was an open compost and it smelled or something else that I had a reason to cite
So
them
there's
for.
nothing you
I
could do
could've.
for that?
Last
If
time
there
we
was no
discussed it,
obnoxious odors or anything.
last time we discussed it, the mayor said that she did have,
Billy has went up and talked to them,
that she could cite them under
Unsightly.
unsightly or.
but it really wasn't. It was a compost, but it was a store-bought. You know,
Sure.
and it looked nice. I mean, it didn't belong there in my opinion, but
Yeah,
I couldn't say it was ugly.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I've
Yeah,
seen, I've seen windmills in front yards that
I
I
don't,
thought were ugly.
and I guess my thing is, I don't necessarily agree with the unsightly portion of it either, because there's so much gray area.
Exactly.
So, I mean, for me, when we're making legislation in the future, I've been an advocate for this as long as I've been here, legislation needs to be black and white. Because when you go to unsightly, now you're going to somebody's opinion.
Yeah.
What you think is unsightly, I might not, or
Now, if
what.
that was an open compost where they were just dumping stuff on the ground to compost and everything else,
Agreed.
that's different. You know what I'm saying? Now you're gonna get the odors and you're gonna get everything else that goes along with it, then it can be cited. When you have a store-bought compost that basically was
You made to
made
compost.
look nice, I mean, I've seen.
Made to
them
at least contain it,
Yeah.
where it wasn't, yes, I would agree with that.
Well, I thought we were gonna agree upon putting stuff like that kind of compost and do away with.
Well,
doing
that's the
grass and
point of
everything else,
her.
Or not.
If you pass legislation saying all composts have to be in the backyard or
Yes.
this or that, I mean, if you pass
I mean,
legislation.
like, there's black stuff all over the yard, I mean, and I have gardens, I'm
Yes.
just saying that, like, it,
The ground protection you're talking about, that
Yeah.
was blowing off the weed.
But I just think you're
That's-
always gonna run into that.
Well, no, here's the problem, and I'm not telling you to pass legislation, I think you should pass legislation actually, because it does make my job easier to some point. Weed control is put underneath a lot of flower beds, you know what I'm saying? And then, do I go around,
but it's not exposed.
it's not exposed. And this is exposed during the winter time, where if I had legislation that says, look, your weed paper should be covered with something, you know what I'm saying?
But a lot of people do that in just the winter, they pull out weed paper, they put it down to keep leaves and
From
debris from
growing.
getting matted in, so, again, I think we're taking this way too far, if you want me to be honest, and splitting hairs, when our issue is front yard gardens in general,
Yeah.
I think is our issue.
I mean, you know, and I did go over this, when I look at this and I think like what he says about, like, I think it was 20% of the yard.
Can't really
So-
go around deciding what's.
I mean, are you really?
If you're dictating the size, something like that is really good. You can't ban front yard gardens. That's been, there's been lawsuits taken against cities and the cities have lost. Okay, so we don't wanna get into a legal battle that we're gonna lose anyhow because there's precedents.
Yeah.
So we can't ban them. So our best option would probably be to try to control the size
Yes.
and other things that go along with it. PVC, I think he said PVC fence,
I don't
think
think
PVC is not very-
fencing and all that.
but, some type of fencing, you know, would be okay, but not PVC,
No.
Yeah.
you know?
Again,
That-
Yeah,
a
we have to
legitimate,
watch out
Those are too gaudy.
yeah, a
Yeah.
legitimate fencing area, if you wanna put a fence around it.
I would like to see the cases that lost. I really would.
Okay.
Because I mean, and again, this is just me, the easiest, cleanest way to do this is to not have.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Dry is always easier.
And I agree with Bob's point too, you're gonna have to really define what a garden is, because
Yeah.
people have flower gardens and things like
Right.
that, but in my opinion at this, I feel like this has kinda went on long enough. We have the same problems that we originally had when this conversation was brought up. And at some point, it's just gonna have to be, this is the easiest way for you to enforce it too, correct? I mean,
Correct, I mean,
I'm
instead of
not-
me trying to search for Ohio revised code laws and everything else to try to find something, it's easier if I say, okay, this is the way a garden's supposed to look in your front yard.
and we only have literally 4 of them in the city, so it isn't like this is some big, it's not like when they tried to do no on-street parking. It's not like when they try to do that where it affects everyone. This is a few certain people, and we do have a community garden. I always bring
There
up.
is.
So
And I had a phone call today, somebody asking for property to grow a garden so they can pass out food to their congregation. So.
which would be fine, which
Yeah.
would be
But-
fine, but as
but-
long as it's not a front yard in front of your house.
Well, you look at your community garden, the community garden is on a corner lot, so that's all front yard,
Yeah.
you know?
Now,
It is.
it's
My
not-
backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I'm gonna say it's not front yard, it's Jimmy's backyard.
These people that have these front yard gardens, do they have backyards at all?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's.
We have one person that we
Has
have
a
been
side
told
yard, a large side
does
yard.
not have adequate space in
Yeah.
their backyard.
Okay. 'Cause
We have one.
I thought that was brought up that one person didn't want to put their yard in the backyard because they had flooding or something.
We have one person that's what we were told,
Right.
correct? I mean, so again, that person can always use community garden, which is fenced in and designated for that specifically. And my rebuttal would be, you could say that's in a front yard. There is no house there.
No.
And the next thing is that area is designated for that, so you don't have problems. So you don't have these all over the city if you don't
Sure.
have a backyard.
They're
That-
just in my backyard.
just in Jimmy's backyard, and we'd like to keep it
And we're
there.
gonna send more people there.
Right, Jim?
Oh, no, there's plenty. There's
But
plenty
I mean,
there.
Is there a
that,
little
again,
garden there?
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm not unreasonable
Yeah,
that
people
that's,
are, when we go walking, there's people in there all the time, like,
Yeah.
So if people do
Doing
keep
their
up on it
plants
and
and-
everything.
Oh, yeah.
to me, that's the
Nice.
that's the easiest way to enforce it.
but it is true,
Well, that
I
doesn't,
mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, we have that area for a reason.
Sure.
So like if you don't have an area, but, and
Well, and I guess my thing is, if that was, say, full, because it was, people were using
Yeah.
it, right? We do have 1 or 2 other areas,
that we can designate for.
correct, so that we don't have this sporadically throughout front yards.
And that doesn't mean that just because people are there that they take care of their gardens, because there are people that don't, that are, their gardens that are overgrown and they're not
You're saying
needed
at the,
at the community garden, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, you know, when you're talking about it, you have some people that don't take good care of their gardens. Most people do. Most people that go
Yeah.
there, and they're generally very considerate when they're there in terms of making they're not loud.
Yeah.
They go there, they do their business. If there's somebody else there, they'll talk for a while. I've had people stop and talk to me. So
I
it's,
would assume if you were gonna make the effort to go there, away from your home, and
Yeah.
actually spend time doing that, you would be respectful, and you would also, more than likely, I would think, you would take care of that area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
well, yeah.
You would think so.
And most do. Every they're well.
But again, I
What were you talking about when and I'm sorry, I was a few minutes late. What were you talking about as far as cases that lost?
Yes, the mayor has researched front yard
Okay.
gardens. And there has been cases where people have sued the city because they couldn't have a front yard garden.
Mhm.
It went to Supreme Court and they lost.
Okay.
I would like to
I don't
review
know
that, kinda
if-
go over that with
I don't know if
Roger.
any of those cases were in the state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
But
City loves.
the city lost.
I'd like to see if they were in cities or townships the same way, you know, just what's specific to our area. I mean, that's, I guess, more
Yeah.
my point.
And I guess if that is the case in Ohio, then, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I would say that, you know, that we don't ban them, because it's like, why put somebody through that to make them sue the city, go through that process when ultimately in the end they will win. But I mean, that's something that would have to be researched.
I would agree with that as well.
And if that's where your regulations of it, even if you
Yeah.
don't ban it, you can regulate it.
Yeah.
Email this to me.
I mean, and I'm
It's in your
for, I
mailbox.
get it, I'm
Just
for the
like
cut and
has
dry,
ideas
but
for us, like
I'm
for our
also
garden,
for the
so-
20%, you know, of the front yard, because it's not a whole front yard.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking like, you
The
know,
corner part.
and it's more manageable too, I mean,
So here, in my opinion, if we are able to do away with them, that's my vote.
Right.
If we are unable to do away with them,
we have to regulate.
we have to come up with a whole set of regulations for them.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think everybody would say they're on board with, no matter what happens, we at least need to regulate them.
Yeah,
and it is
Right.
sad that there's 4 in the city and we have to regulate how people, because people will not take care of their front yards.
You know, and obviously people that are listening in on this too now have a notion that they're able to win the cases against us probably too.
Well, I mean, you don't know.
Like I said, I
I'm
know
just
there was
saying.
cases, and I don't
You know what I
know
mean?
if
I
there
would
was
be-
How do they
cases.
know that?
Especially certain.
I would be
I'm just
interested in
saying-
seeing those.
I'm just saying, if you banned them,
I would be interested in seeing
somebody
I would
could
too.
How they
I know
pertain-
there was one in
And when
Florida
we-
that I've ever seen.
how they pertain to our situation is what to go off of,
Right.
honestly.
I got you, but I'm just saying.
Yes, but you know, at the end of the day, I think when everybody's here, we need to ramp this discussion up again and really come to a definite on it.
Yeah.
Okay, whether what we're gonna do with it, whether we're gonna ban, whether we're gonna try to regulate. We know that regulating is gonna bring in another set of headaches for administration. That's a fact.
yes.
Well, and there again, I mean, if it's only 4 people, then it's like, you know, trying to regulate 4 people
regulation-
isn't the same as trying to regulate, you know,
Agreed.
1,000 people in the city.
Agreed.
Regulations, you're right, it does throw a little bit more on our administration, but it also makes it easier for the administration to have something to fall back on.
No doubt.
You know, it's not like we're going out inspecting them on a daily basis, we're gonna respond to a complaint and then we can have something, yes, it is in violation, no, it's not in violation.
So is that the generality, I guess, in almost all of our property code is on a basis of complaint?
Yes. You
So
don't
we're
have
not-
the manpower to go out.
We don't actively look for.
We do look.
Okay.
Okay, so he drives the city every day, basically, and I'm gonna
Okay.
tell you something, he comes out every Monday, and he drives just looking for trash on the curb. He writes down every single property, he calls BFI, or Republic Services, and reports it. And a lot of times it's already been called in by the residents, a lot of times it's not. And if it's not, now BFI is aware of it, they pick it up. And then he will notify wherever the address is, I called this in for you, but if you put anything out next time, you have to call Republic Services. Billy's doing a great job. Nobody told him to do that, he does it every single Monday, alright? So when you have something sitting out at the curb, believe me, Billy knows about it.
He
Does
drives the
Billy-
whole city on Mondays.
He drives the whole city
Wow.
on
But I guess
Monday.
my thing is, does Billy ever cite anybody for, if the same person puts something out 3 weeks in a row, are they getting cited?
I don't think it happens. Because, like I said, he does the process. He'll call it in the first time, then he notifies them of what needs to be done. You know what I'm saying? So, honestly, I don't think it occurs that,
Do it on a Monday.
don't do it on Monday.
he does it on Monday because Tuesday is pickup day.
Right.
So every Monday, and I'm gonna tell you, Monday holidays, I've seen him out driving around, and they calls Mona.
Sunday night's pickup time, is it Monday?
Monday is pickup day for excess of trash,
Oh,
bulk pickup day.
okay, I got you.
For the whole city.
I got
It's
you.
Tuesday.
Republic does that on
Right,
Tuesdays.
every Tuesday.
And
But also,
Saturday, too,
does
I think,
Billy
too.
drive around like,
Looking for
Other-
property code violations?
yes.
Yes, he does.
okay. So if he comes across a dump truck parked in a yard or parked in a driveway.
Somebody called today about 2 trucks on, can't remember the street. It was down here in your ward, I believe. And, well, I'm just saying,
Ronnie's not here,
I don't
so-
remember the street, but it was just up here. We didn't have an address. So Taylor started telling me, you know, the person at 880 or something called in about down the street, he says 53. He says he already knew about it. He already, I mean, he drives around and he
Sure.
looks for these things and he knows about them. Very seldom have I ever mentioned an address to him where he says, I know about that.
Yeah.
Very seldom.
I just wanna make sure, because when I started, it was a police's job.
Yeah.
It was the safety service director and the police's job.
Right.
And then it seems like it went away from the police at one point and basically to the safety service director. Then it went from there to property
And
code
I'll be honest with
enforcement
you,
agent.
I don't drive around. I barely leave my office. And how previous safety service directors were able to get out of the office surprises me. The amount of paper workload that I have in the office itself.
Well, that's why you have
keeps me
Billy though
busy.
also.
Yes,
I mean,
that's.
I guess I mean, my thing is, I see Billy out almost every single day, honestly, because I'm here cutting grass or doing this or that. There ain't a day that probably goes by that I don't pass Billy.
He comes in every morning, about 7:45. He sits, he does some paperwork, and about 9 o'clock, he's out, and he'll come back around noon. He does some more paperwork, a couple of phone calls, and then he'll go back out in the afternoon.
I guess my question about him, if he passes something, then he actively addresses it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why he'll come back in and he'll make phone calls to property
Because if
landlord.
we go to, my complaint would be if we
landlords
go to only a complaint system, then people are kinda like, well, I've been getting away with this, so I'm gonna keep
You're
getting,
right,
you know what I
you're right.
mean?
Now, I'm not saying he catches every single
No,
violation
no,
out
no,
there,
and I don't think that that's possible.
but he catches a lot of them.
I don't think
And
that that's
that being
possible.
said, I got two pieces of paper in me, they're both legislation that I'm probably gonna come to you in the near future to change. One is our garbage and rubbish collection legislation, and the other is our residential rental properties legislation. I think the rubbish one says the mayor and health commissioner. Obviously, we don't have a health commissioner, we did away with our health department. And a couple other things in here that I would like to see updated and corrected
Okay.
to suit our needs. Back in 2020, Finance and Legislation passed an ordinance for landlord residential rental properties. And it deals with trash being in the property owner's name. It says it in our trash and rubbish that the property owner has to have trash in their name. You have a rental property or you live there, it has to be there. And it refers to that in this section as 951.06. But underneath it, it says, unless the current tenant already has an account.
That was like we were godfather in a minute.
Yeah, we'd like to eliminate that.
Oh, okay.
We don't want to give them a choice. It's,
You just
you're
want
the
that
property owner.
yeah.
That's what this legislation says, the property owner has to have it. We want to keep it consistent, okay? So we'd like to do away with, you know, if the existing landlord already had it in, you know, tenant. It's been long enough, it's been almost 3 years. You've had an opportunity to get it in to the property owner's name. You know, it's been 3 years. So I'm gonna probably come up with some kind of legislation to change that, and I'll come back to you in the future. I just wanna let you know that I'm working on this. Couple of fees in here that we'd like to do away with. We think they're kinda silly to try and collect them. We don't wanna make a burden on landlords, so we collect the fees that we have to collect, and the other fees, there's just not.
What fees are you thinking?
There's a fee in here that charges, what do I wanna say, a bond, or you have security deposit. You have to put a security deposit down if you're a property manager. We've never collected that security
No, that's
deposit.
probably.
I wouldn't know what to do with it, I don't know how much to collect, or anything else. So we've never collected a security deposit off a property manager, and I'd just like to do away with it. We keep good track of property managers, so.
I agree.
Every year when they do the landlord registration, we got the property manager's name. If they change, we get their name.
I also think this, the easier we can keep this,
Yes.
the better response you're gonna get from people actually doing it.
And the other issue is, the legislation's written that everybody has to do their landlord registration at the first of the year. We don't do it that way right now, and I'd like to change it to where it's good for a year. If you register in June, you're good until next June. Instead of, if right now it's written that if you register in June, at the end of the year, you have to register again. That would throw every single property in the city
At one
on
time,
re-registration at one time, and it's just not feasible. We currently, every month, we send out landlord registrations. they get them back. The next month we send out another batch. So everybody pays for a year, it'd still be a yearly collection,
Sure.
but it's not all in the same month.
And we won't be overwhelmed with it.
Right.
That
So
makes
those
sense.
are minor changes in our ordinances. It doesn't really change a whole lot, but they're minor changes to more accommodate the way we are doing things.
Bob, do you guys charge for house inspections in between?
That's the other thing, I'm gonna recommend that we do away with the inspection. We
I think
charge
you'll
them a
get a-
$50 fee for registration every single year,
Yeah.
and inspection should be part of that registration.
Now, I call you guys for inspections, but I feel like a lot of people
We still,
don't.
we still do the inspections.
Right, no, I understand, but I feel like a lot of people don't because they don't wanna pay the $50. They feel
No.
the same way that you just named, which
Right.
was, I already pay this $50 per year to have this. You want me to inspect
The
it?
inspection does a couple of different things. It keeps us a tab on who is living in that property. You know what I'm saying? That's the basic thing. So we know who to go after when there is a property code violation or something else. I think the way we're doing it right now doesn't necessarily comply with our regulations. I'd like to change our regulations to suit our needs. And landlord registration, we've had some questions about how it was collected in the past and everything else, so I'd just like to do away with it. Not the registration, the inspections.
Inspection.
So do away with the inspections and just do landlord registration, and the inspection will just become a free service with the registration.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the end goal here is to get everybody to register their
Exactly.
properties. And I think the easiest way to do that is to streamline it as much as possible.
So as soon as I get this all put together and give it to Megan to put in an actual legislation form, then I'll be coming to you to ask for the change. And it's just a change, with no new legislation, just updating and changing the current legislation.
One question,
Yes,
are we able to, we have iWorks,
yes.
and see, are we able to access that?
We probably could set you up for a read-only access. I can't have everybody putting stuff into it. Honestly,
No, and that's
yeah,
what-
honestly,
that's what our
I don't
plan
even,
was.
I don't put stuff into iWorks too often. Very seldom do I put anything in. I have in the past, but if I put it in, Billy doesn't, then I have to verbally tell him, Billy, I put this in there.
I guess our problem.
Do we pay for that every
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, we do.
iWorks, yes.
And that was I guess I'll just be honest, I kinda have an issue with that because when we agreed to adopt this and pay for it, the biggest thing from council was, this is great, now we'll know
Yeah, we
who
can
was
see
cited, we'll know who got a letter, we'll know who had a status.
We can give you read-only access.
But if we're not gonna use it, then we need to stop paying for it. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
and I guess the thing is, if you're not, if it's not a tool that you're utilizing.
We do utilize it. We
Okay.
utilize it quite well for
Okay.
registration, for sending out violation notices and everything else.
Okay,
It is utilized.
So we
Taylor
can see,
goes
like,
in there
what
and knows it really
violations.
well. Billy knows it really, really well. Billy's made a lot of changes because Billy's, believe it or not, is very computer literate.
okay,
He knows about 500 times more about a computer than I do.
okay,
I go in, I do mostly read-only. I do have access to enter stuff and everything else, but mostly when somebody calls me about a property, I go in and I look it up and I just see what's happening.
Does
Well, you-
Billy put in whenever he like stops and lets people know like about things and stuff like that?
Sometimes, if they correct it like immediately, he probably won't put it in, but he does, yes, he does. If he tries to track,
Yeah.
he'll put the violation in and put in violation corrected. So we
Okay.
have a history that there was a violation
Yeah.
there. Then you can see if there's a pattern.
See, originally, it was supposed to be able to be viewed by the public as well. So that when they called with a complaint, they could know that that actually got sent out.
I think we
That's I don't
Decided
think
against
that
that,
would
though.
be feasible to allow the public to have access.
To
Because
view?
you have to have a password. We have to set up passwords, you have to have in everything, so it just wouldn't be feasible. If you want to set up for a read-only access, Taylor knows how to do that now.
I can email
So-
Taylor and let her know that we need to.
Because like myself, before I purchase a property when I'm looking to, I call you, or I call Billy, or I call whoever was in there before and ask, what's the status? Are there, have they not been cutting their grass,
No.
are there liens against it, are there, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So, we get a lot of stupid requests also.
And neighbors bickering.
No, from China and every place else wanting all this information on property codes and how we do property. They're phishing, scamming emails, and we get tons of them all the time. Okay, so I don't really wanna open it up to the public. More than happy to let you have a read-only access to it. That's not a problem. If somebody calls you and says, has this property been cited? You'll have read
Yeah,
access only, where
absolutely.
you can look it up and say, yes, they've already been cited. Yes, they've already been given a warning, or whatever, or that case is closed. We had a problem when Billy took over where a lot of cases were opened, nothing was ever closed. So we're trying to get a lot of those corrected. If you open a case, you gotta follow up on it, you gotta close the case. If you cite them with a fine, when that fine's paid, you gotta close the case. You can't just leave everything open. And that, when Billy took over, there was a lot of that, just open cases. Like I said, he spent a lot of time, he's a very computer literate, and he understands the software a lot better than anybody has in the past.
Okay.
One other thing about gardens, there's, vegetable, flower gardens. One that I'm concerned about, beer gardens.
We have some light regulation on that, but maybe too much, we might want to
that is
pull
right.
some back.
No beer gardens.
That's regulated by the state. That's
A lot of
Adam.
beer gardens and Struthers.
Yeah,
A lot of drinking holes here.
yeah.
Anybody else, anything for finance and legislation? Oh, the mayor has asked me to. She wanted me to announce the passing of Bob George from the wastewater plant, and that they're having a gathering at the cemetery tomorrow at 11 o'clock. No service or churches or anything.
Yeah, that's the cemetery up by the golf course.
Yes.
Okay. You didn't put that in.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that St. John's?
St. John's.
Yeah.
So if you can make it, please do.
Yeah.
Anything else? Call for adjournment?
Movement.
Motion?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey,
What do we?
oh, I know,
do?
one of them had concern.